me, my buddy from Corrections. Good morning.
Who's supposed to be our timer today? Somebody likely to.
Rod Brown.
Not sure. Hey,
I'm
what's
good.
Will's supposed to be tabled.
I'm president.
This is
Flying
I say, well, I don't think I had anything coming. I'm not a
I'm in the evaluator.
Oh, I'm you know, I put up the stuff and I said, I wonder who's going
Do
to
you work with me?
I was involved in it.
Yeah.
Unless you're just a lazy.
Run or
Okay, so what's your function then?
I will, I'll do that.
Oh, okay.
I'll get
Yeah,
this.
Kate's speaking and Alan Moore.
We'll find something.
That's good.
Hey,
Yeah, let's come up with something. But if we don't have a Toastmaster, you want to be Toastmaster today? Because we're not sure if Bo's gonna show up.
Yeah, I figured.
nobody
I was
heard
kind
from
of
him.
preparing for that.
What do you think, Rob?
Boo Nigrin.
Man?
Is that how you say his name?
B-U-U.
He pronounces it Bo. Wow, look at there.
Thank you.
are you acting as president, Martha?
Yeah.
Oh, so Alan.
Oh, he talked you into it?
Yeah, he told me to do it.
So who is Toastmaster?
Yes, I
have
am.
no seat.
And I'm the chief evaluator.
Or
Yes,
something.
I have it.
But Mr. Tom Avery talked me into it.
I didn't know,
You're-
Alan helped me to speak, but
Yes.
I was assistant evaluator, so I can.
We can fill it in.
Evaluators are easy to.
Yeah.
Whoever got the agenda here, great, thank you.
Yes, I've got that, and I got the bulletin. Who's the bulletin writer today?
Dale.
Dale
Most of the
Jensen.
functions
Dale
are-
Jensen. Who's Dale Jensen?
Keeping,
I'm new. I'm new.
as grammarian, should it be bullet writer too?
Oh.
I don't know, I let Steve do it, because he's so good at
What
it.
I am,
Hey, Stevie.
at this point, I was putting time in Alan's spot. So I could split it.
Oh, it just depends. I think they rotate us in and out.
Yeah, I don't know, I thought I was coming back.
Timer, bulletin, Toastmasters.
Am I the bulletin guy?
Yeah, well, let's put it this way, I can
I
volunteer.
can be the bulletin, yeah.
Well, I
That's
think
the
for some reason
default.
they keep writing me in.
Your default anyway, your mind's always going there.
Well, I always take notes, cause then I can fill out a bunch of it before I get bullets and stuff, like winners
I
and
wouldn't
things
speak
like
for
that.
speaker again.
But,
Alright, I would like to call the meeting to order. I don't know, gavel.
yeah.
Welcome guests and welcome Harney, is that how you say it? And to Toastmasters today. And I would like to call on, Art was supposed to be our invitation and pledge this morning, but he is not here, so do we have a volunteer to do that? We're gonna need a lot of volunteers tonight.
Sure.
Okay.
Kate?
Please.
Okay.
Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this wonderful country, this beautiful state, and this incredible winter fall day. We ask that you assist us as we work together to improve our speaking, leadership, and communication skills, and that you keep in mind always those who are out and about protecting us both at home and abroad. Bless this food for our use and our purpose, and make us ever mindful for the needs of others. Amen. Please join me in the pledge to our flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excuse me. Yesterday was a weird day. I had a weird Monday. I felt like I was getting the beginning of a cold sickness, but then I woke up this morning and I was feeling pretty good. So that's always good. And the day went by really fast. We actually had a meeting with Alan, and it took 2 hours to talk about more a drink, and so I did call up my friend Nicole. She lives in Virginia Beach now, so she lived in Arizona her whole life, and so now I'm kind of exploring her, talking to her about her life in Virginia Beach, which is just the most random place ever to move to. But her boyfriend's a pilot, and so that's where he's based out of. So, but they're having fun, and so you just kind of have to get up and if you're having a weird day, just try to make it better. And today, our greeter warm-up was supposed to give by Mike, and he's not here today either. So we also need a volunteer for that. Does anyone want to volunteer for a topic?
Sure. First of all, Connie Stefanski. Stand up, Connie. This is Connie Stefan. Connie is a former Rotarian. If you happen to be in the neighborhood of the state capitol and you notice the memorial to the veterans of World War II, the fallen heroes from Arizona of World War II, she gets a lot of the credit for making that happen, along with our outgoing Secretary of State. But Connie was the key person in Rotary who helped raise the money for that. Anyway, I'm glad to have you with us. Connie is the Development Director of Make-A-Wish, correct? And nice to have you. During warm-up, please tell who you are, how long you've been in Toastmasters, so we kind of get some flavor from the group. I've been here forever. I don't know how long I've been. I was in Toastmasters, originally another club, and then I dropped out because of parental demands, and then when my kids were old enough and I felt I needed to come back to Toastmasters, I did so, and that's been about 15 years ago. So anyway, theme for the day, something to do with our veterans. Last week was Veterans Day, and veterans are on my mind because of the article in yesterday's Arizona Republic, which is kind of mind-boggling in terms of the shortcomings of the VA. Anyway, when I think about veterans, I think about my son, who is a major in the Air Force, currently serving in Germany. He's a veteran in training. In fact, I sent him on Veterans Day. I said, please give our support and love to all of the veterans in training who are in your command.
I'm John Shaw. I think I joined several months ago. And the only true veteran I know is my dad. And he used to wake us up on December 7th and say, today is Pearl Harbor Day. And I knew that from the time and I say to my kids, today is Pearl Harbor Day. And they look at me like, what's Pearl Harbor Day? I'm not really a veteran. I did serve in the Army, but the only combat I ever did was in the courtroom. But I have a lot of respect for veterans, and I hope that some of my children will take advantage of the opportunities that serving in the military provide. Pass the ball to you.
Okay. Well, I was just noting that next week is November 22nd, and that was the day that President Kennedy was assassinated. And I was a senior in high school, prepared to play my last high school football game. And it was canceled, and I was majorly disappointed. And it was a day of reflection, a day of a lot of crying, a day of a lot of difficulty for a lot of people, as nobody could understand how in the world this could happen to somebody who was as charismatic as President Kennedy. But it drew us together.
By the way, this was Greg Robinson. He's an attorney.
Greg Robinson. Remember almost as long as
And Greg's a lot older than me because I was in grade school. He was in high school, so he's got to be a lot older.
Yeah.
I'm Steve Reif. I'm the longest member of this Toastmaster Club. I've been here since '76, and I'm a graphic designer and a printing sales person. As far as veterans, my brother was in the Air Force and currently isn't. He was on the MP side, and he was hoping to, when he got out of the service, be a policeman. Well, that never happened, but anyway, I do think of vets because of him. Victor.
Victor Powell, I've been Toastmasters for about a year and a half. When I think of veterans, I think of my father and my father-in-law, who were both World War II veterans. They both progressed now, but my father was in the Army Air Corps, flying bombing missions over Germany at night, and my father-in-law was in the infantry, actually drove a truck for General Patton. But I just think of the modesty that they had. And they saw horrible things, and that was part of it. They didn't speak about it because it was such horrible things that they saw. But also they didn't, it was just kind of, they did what they had to do. That was that generation.
Hi, I'm Tony Kekar, and 43 years I've been here in United States. I was 20-year-old when I came here, and I was in the Indian Navy as a cadet, but as a captain cadet. And they wanted to take me all the way big time, but my dad talked me out of getting into the armed forces. He said, you know, I think you've got good grades, you probably should do something with education, so I ended up being a professor. Anyway, but I have great respect for veterans, and I think they're not given enough attention, in my opinion.
We're talking about veterans, and introduce yourself because we have a guest.
Okay,
Carly.
great. I'm Dale Jensen. I'm with Kitchen Contractors. Usually we have a large contingent, but we've fallen out of late.
Busy.
Right, which is a good thing for us. But when I think of veterans, I always think of my grandparents and how they fought in wars, and it's something that I'm very grateful for them, and I never had to do it, and I really think fondly of them. I have all of their, they've since passed on, but I have every piece of memorabilia that they've brought back with them, just to honor and respect what they did for our country.
Kate Brophy McGee, I've been a member of Toastmasters since May of 2010, when they salvaged my floundering campaign for the legislature. I have an uncle who's since passed, but he flew B-52s during World War II over the Pacific Theater. My father was a P-38 instructor. Two of my brothers were in Army, the Army engineers and the Army demolition squad. My brother with all thumbs was on the demolition squad right out of college. One during the Vietnam War and the other as the Vietnam War finished up. My most poignant thought of a veteran is a conversation with a mom who was almost in tears because her son was bound and determined to join either the Air Force or the Army and wanted to go to one of the academies and had, ever since they were that little, and the way she described this young man, he's a warrior, and that's what I said. He is a warrior by genetics, by desire, and it takes an unusual person to be that. My sons had warriors with them in their high school class, so I understand that it's a genetic makeup. I can't tell you how much I honor and respect their veterans. Do you care to participate?
Sure, I could.
Say something
You
about
get
the
to turn it down your first time around.
I'm Carney Stephan. I'm a guest of Kate's. In March, my brother-in-law came back from the military with my sister. He's a wounded warrior. And since that was in March and the VA scandal came through in April, I'm quite familiar with the VA scandal and what is still happening because they live with me. And I was very involved with World War II Memorial because of the Americans, my father did not end up in Russian occupied Czechoslovakia. So, quite a fan of veterans. Thank you.
My name's Martha, and I have been a Toastmaster for about a year and a half, and I am acting as president today for Alan because he is out of the office, or out of town. And my grandpa is actually a Marine veteran, and he doesn't talk about it very much. He fought in Vietnam, and he is very quiet about it. He doesn't, I don't have many stories because he just doesn't want to talk about it. And so today, Roger, thanks so much for filling in for Toastmaster because Bode is not here today. Roger is a longtime Toastmaster, and I know he will be a great leader today for our meeting, and so please help me introduce Roger.
Thank you, Martha.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you both, because I get an opportunity to be Toastmaster. As I was thinking of coming up with a theme for the day, it occurred to me that veterans are very much in our minds, not just because it was Veterans Day last week, but because of the articles in the paper about the failings of the Veterans Administration. Got home last night and I was reading the article in yesterday's Republic about 31,000 medical positions are vacant at the VA. And the VA couldn't have told you that 60 days ago because they didn't know until the Arizona Republic or other elements of the media started pressing them for specific data on how many vacancies there were in medical positions within the VA. And they finally, because of the public pressure, compiled the data. So that now they know, and it's over 31,000. That's an awful lot of doctors that should be taking care of our veterans who aren't because the jobs are empty. So the theme today is veterans and our responsibility as a society to take care of the veterans, and by how we take care of our veterans today, assure our veterans of tomorrow that we will be taking care of them as the need arises. Connie, within Toastmasters, we have a number of responsibilities that give people experience in different aspects of public speaking and running, managing a meeting. And we also have a number of awards. Some awards are positive, like best speaker, best evaluator, because we do a lot of evaluations of the speeches. And some of them are negative. We're going to talk about some of the negatives. The negatives are to reinforce, to remind us of things we should be doing and aren't doing. So the first person I'm going to recognize is our grammarian of the day, Greg Robinson, and Greg will share his duties and also tell us about the bell, which is this little.
Yes, the grammarian is supposed to come up with a word of the day which we use in table topics. Guests are exempt from using the word of the day. I will also count ums, pregnant pauses, and look for grammatical errors. And I use the word chaos. It's a noun. You can use chaotic, which is an adjective if you want to, or chaotically, which is an adverb. It means disorder. The chaos occurring throughout the world reminds us of the peace here in the U.S. Use the word in your table topics, and I'll keep track of all the ums, ahs, pregnant pauses.
And at the end of the meeting, you will be naming the winner of the bell, correct? The
Correct.
person that had the most verbal pauses and ums and ahs and so on. Our chief evaluator this morning is going to be Tony Kakar, and one of the Tony's duties will be to determine who, if anyone, wins the whitewash race. So Tony, would you share with us, as our guest?
As I understand it, I'm new to this, the whitewash award goes to one of the evaluators. So each speaker has an evaluator, and no matter how great the speaker is, the evaluator has to come up with 2 creative criticisms. Some good positive comments, of course. And if they don't, they get this whitewash.
Tony?
Is that correct?
Martha, would you explain the donor badge?
The Donor Badge is a negative award you do not want to win. It is given to someone who maybe calls someone by the wrong name, or they say something inappropriate or out of context. We try to keep the meeting appropriate. I don't know how to explain that, but just try to keep your words and what you say in line, or you'll get the voter badge.
And we have this award called the Hot Air Award, picture of hot air balloon that somebody took. Dale, I'm gonna ask you if you would explain the Hot Air Award.
Being the time of the day, I will be watchful for this award. You will receive it if you go over time, either on table topics or in your speeches. And sometimes you'll win it if you're extra long in your evaluations. It's a rare occasion as we try to keep those short and to the point. Thank you.
And I am supposed to be joke master, and I have a joke, but before I get to my joke, I have a funny anecdote that was sparked to my attention by the word of the day. It has to do with the word disorder, and goes back in time to the 1968 Democrat Convention, which took place in Chicago, and it's the one where the peace marchers basically took over the streets of Chicago and almost shut down the Democratic National Convention. And Mayor Daley brought the police, Chicago police in a very forceful way, and was questioned as to whether or not the police had provoked the disorder in the streets, and responded very emphatically. This is a lesson in public speaking. The job of the police is not to provoke disorder. The job of the police is to preserve disorder. Now for the joke. University in London, students are taking a course in medical care and the economics of medical care. And they're taking the examination, and the question that will decide whether they pass or fail is that they must list 7 advantages of mother's milk. One student's script answers go like this. I'm sorry about reading jokes. Jokes normally should not be read, but when it's a list of items, you're almost forced to. It's the perfect formula for the child. That's 1. 2, it provides immunity against several diseases. 3, it is always at the right temperature. 4, it's inexpensive. 5, it bonds mother to child and child to mother. 6, it's always available as needed. And 7, it comes in 2 attractive containers that are high enough off the ground that the cat cannot get to. At this point, it's my pleasure to introduce Steve Reif. Well, before I do that, I need to ask Dale, would you be our consider as timer?
Yes.
We have 2 scheduled speakers this morning. Our Kate, 5 to 7 minutes.
6 to 8.
6 to 8 minutes for Kate, please. And
And then the third speaker.
5 to 7 for John. Who's the 3rd speaker? Oh, Victor, I'm sorry. And Victor, what is your time?
5 to 7.
5 to 7. Thank you very much. So Dale, if you would explain the duties in light of Kate's 6 to 8 minute speech and our other 2 speakers at 5 to 7 minutes, and also explain your duties in relation to the grammarians or to the table topics.
Sure. I'll be timing all the speeches today, and at 6 to 8, I gotta remember this, it's been a while. So at 6 minutes, I'll turn on the green light. And then at 7 minutes, the amber or orange light. And then at 8 minutes, I'll do the red light. And then if you go over 8 minutes, I'll do the buzzer.
That's for Kate. The other 2, it's a minute early.
8 and a half, I'll do the buzzer. That's right. Excuse me.
And for table topics?
And for table topics, everyone gets 1 minute. And I'll just hit the buzzer. This buzzer, the one that's clearly marked buzzer.
Okay.
In which case you'll abruptly finish up your topic.
And you will also be counting some ballots this morning.
Yes.
Thank you, Dale.
Not practice.
Now, if you would welcome, please be right, our pinch hitter as table topics leader this morning.
Thank you, Roger. Well, it's always fun to fill in the table topics.
Today.
And Connie, I may call on you later. Carney, C-A.
Thank you.
I'm close, I'm getting closer. K-A-R-N-Y. Okay. I'm the bulletin writer, so if you wouldn't mind writing it down, or maybe an email, and send it to me, I'll make sure I send you one of the bulletins in your email this week. All right, well, I'm being fill-in here. I'm going to just kind of do a shotgun approach on topics. So Martha, my wife and I moved into a new place for us in April. And now we're coming up for decorating the house, especially the outside of the house. What recommendations would you tell us about the important decorations that you should have on the outside of the house during the holiday season? Christmas, maybe.
Well, moving into a house is always chaotic, so congratulations, you passed that. When you decorate a house outside, I think first you need to start with the paint. The paint job needs to be done nicely, and you have to have maybe, if your door's nice, I mean, if the finishes of the doorknob and the lights. But as for the holiday season, I think you need to have some lighting for your Christmas lights, maybe along the top of your roof, and also maybe a wreath on your door. And you could possibly have some poinsettias, is that how you say it? Poinsettias in the front of, in the front of your doorway. And also at my parents' house, we used to have the luminaires on the walkway that we used to have, so that was always fun. And if you want to get crazy, you can have one of those big inflatable snowmans if you want to have some fun with it. But if you have kids in your neighborhood, they might steal it, so beware of that.
Very good mind, thank you. Yeah, those blow-up balloons, they're not cheap.
I know.
So I don't know that I want to spend money on that one. Oh, let's see here, Greg Robinson.
Yes.
This year, the Super Bowl is in Arizona, first part of February. And the Cards currently have the best record in football. Do you think the Cards will make it to the Super Bowl and be able to play as the home team?
If you're trying to do odds, it would be chaotic to try and figure that out. But I would suggest that they're about a 20% chance of being in the Super Bowl. Even though they're probably the best defensive team in the NFL this year, their offense is less than stellar. They have a real good running back named Ellington. He's a highlight. Their quarterback, Mr. Stanton, who's the substitute quarterback, is a journeyman. Several years, 8 years in the league, and 8 starts over 8 years. So he's a work in progress. But 20% would be good, because you got to get by some really experienced, tough teams. Our defense could do it. Our offense could take it away from the defense. It's not a minute yet. Well, and I think it's a fun thing to watch unfold.
Very good, thank you, Greg. Kate. There's been a lot of talk, at least on Fox, I'm not sure about all the other networks, about this Mr. Gruber, which I referred to last week when it came out, with his comments about having to twist Obamacare and lie to the American people to try to get it passed. Have you seen any of this, and what's your take on consultants telling the president or administration or anybody, mayor, whoever, on ways to lie to try to get something passed?
I think Jonathan Brewer may well turn out to be the match that lights the fuse that leads to the dismantling and repeal of Obamacare. Clearly, it was planned chaos. And I remember watching with bated breath as that whole process went through and went down, and recognized that in fact it was a series of things, that lies and deceptions and changing of stories that were intended to cobble together the votes simply to get the measure through Congress. I'm not saying that Obamacare isn't the answer. In some people's minds it is. There are also other answers. What I can say is you cannot pass a substantive piece of legislation that remakes 1/5 of the United States economy and do it on that type of basis in the middle of the night with not a single Republican vote and not expect the chaos and failure that ensued.
Tony, along those same lines, finding out that a lot of pointy-headed liberals seem to think Americans are stupid, why do you think they keep trying to push climate change? Do they still think we're stupid?
Do this still think? Well, that's chaos there, right there. They are jealous. And I think whenever you're jealous, you make these stupid remarks, in my opinion. And Obamacare, you know, it's kind of got forced on us. Like whenever something gets forced on you, you don't like it. And you drill holes in it. So that's, I think, and the bad web design and all that, you know, stuff that happens. So Americans are not, they're the most practical. Well, of course, I'm coming from, I was 20 years old when I came here, so I'm more American than anything. They're very practical, there's so much opportunity, it's amazing. So, I mean, I'm so proud.
Carney, would you like to participate? I won't ask you a political
You don't have
question. I'll throw you a softball.
Sure. Yeah,
Okay,
like 5 seconds.
great. It used to be, well, it probably still is, that the biggest shopping day of the year is Black Friday. But now a lot of stores are talking about, and some are, opening like 5 o'clock on Thanksgiving. You know, midnight wasn't soon enough, and so now they're moving it up even farther. What do you think about stores opening up, trying to get a jump on holiday sales?
So, the United States was founded, and one of the great historic things is Thanksgiving. And it's a time that we've all created and reflected about what we're thankful for. And so to infringe on that special time of family, I find inappropriate and offensive. And it creates a lot of chaos when everybody's on the road at the end of the day of Thanksgiving.
Very good. Dale.
Take football for 100.
You want a football question?
I think for politics,
Anything but politics? Oh, I was going to throw a politic.
Oh, all right. You just got to tell me what it's about.
You're a consultant, and you want to give some words of wisdom on what you think Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid should do now that they are not majority leaders in the House and Senate. What would your recommendations to them be, whether personal, job related?
Too late to talk about the cards, I guess.
I think it's more than 20%.
Well, anytime that you were in a position and now you're not in that position, you have to try to support those who are now in that position. And I don't know if they're a Republican or Democrat, because I haven't been paying attention. I've been in La La Land a little bit past few months. But it seems that would be the best course for the organization. And I know that doesn't always happen. Sometimes there's some pushback where, okay, we don't agree with their policies, so we're not going to support them anymore, and I'm not in power, and you kind of tense up and want to do your own thing and break away from it. But the best course would be to support the legislators going forward that are now in their positions, and hopefully that happens and everyone can get along and kind of skirt the chaos that has been happening in our government as of late.
Did you say chaos?
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
That's already been a lot.
Well, thank you everyone who participated. Greg, would you give us a report on who used the word of the day so we can vote? for the
All
best
used
day?
the word of the day, even Carney did, even though she didn't have to. So Martha did, Carney did, Kate did, Dale did, Tony did, and I did.
So please vote and pass the ballots over to Dale so he can count them. And I'll turn it back over to our Toastmaster of the day, Dr. Mars.
Thank you, Steve. Please do take a moment to vote for the person that you think did the best job. Listening to all these comments, on Obamacare, I think Obamacare has three problems. One is only three. One is credibility. Two is it faces legal challenges because of the subsidy structure. The bill only authorizes subsidies for those states that set up state exchanges, and there are only 13 of them. And the bill does not authorize subsidies for the other 37. And the government is trying to push through subsidies to those 37 because without those subsidies, the whole structure becomes unviable. Nobody can afford, I shouldn't say nobody, but the people that Obamacare is aimed to help cannot afford Obamacare without the subsidies, and if they are prevented legally from receiving subsidies, then the system collapses. And third is the problem with the VA, because if we can't provide, the government's not capable of delivering medical care to our veterans, how can it realistically be expected to bring medical care to the rest of the population at large? It's illogical at best. Anyway, moving on, because we have three speakers this morning that I'm anxious to hear from. First, we need to introduce their evaluators. So, and for that, I'm going to call upon Tony to tell us a little bit about his responsibility as an evaluator and introduce these evaluators individual speakers.
Do I go there? Yeah. Am I supposed to go there?
You go up here. Please welcome Tony to the lecture.
Thank you, Rod. A general evaluator or a chief evaluator evaluates everything that the other three don't. So it's wide open. Do we have any substitutes needed today?
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Let's see, I think
Steve.
John Shaw is
John's here.
right there, and Steve is going to be the evaluator. Kate, Melissa, I think? No,
Not here.
Yeah,
no, Melissa.
Martha.
Martha, I know.
Melissa's not here.
It's
I
an
can
M,
do-
I know it's an M.
Yeah, it's an M, you're close. No, I can do it for you.
Okay, I'm new, see it, my third.
It's all right.
And Alan Norris,
He's not here.
he's not here, and so Victor Powell, you were supposed to be the evaluator.
I can evaluate
You
myself.
can evaluate. So we need
I'll
somebody.
volunteer.
Okay, thank you, Greg.
Okay,
Is there anything I need to say? No?
that's it.
All right.
Thank you, Tony.
I used 1 hour.
Our first speaker of the morning is John Shaw. And John's concise introduction. The topic of his speech is stream fishing, relaxation for the old and the restless. Please welcome John Shaw. To talk about stream fishing.
I love to fish. I have wonderful memories of fishing with my dad. I have great memories of fishing as an adult with friends, and memories of fishing with my children, and now I'm making memories fishing with my grandchildren. My youngest grandson is JP, he's 7. When he comes to visit, the first thing he says, "When are we going fishing, Papa?" And that means a trip over to Canto Park to fish for the stock trout and catfish. But there's a couple things about fishing that don't appeal so much to me. It can be very expensive. If you figure the cost of buying and maintaining and storing a boat, and you advertise that over the pounds of fish you're likely to catch, the numbers are not very good. Fishing requires, generally speaking, a great deal of patience. The most successful fishermen are bastions of patience. They can sit for hours waiting for a catfish to take the bait, or cast hundreds of times until they get a good strike from a big mouth bass. But for me, patience is in short supply. So what is a guy who can't sit still to do if he loves to be outdoors and fish? The answer is stream fishing. You don't need much equipment to fish in a stream. A pole, line, some hooks, and some bait. And of course you need a stream with fish in it. You might be saying to yourselves, we live in the desert. Where am I going to find a stream with fish in it? Actually, there are a number of opportunities close by. Just to the west is the Salt River, which much of the year has a low flow and it's more like a stream. If you go up north, there's the Verde River, which is a stream about as wide as the space here between the desks. And then if you're up on the Mogollon Rim, there's Christopher Creek and Tonto Creek and Silver Creek. There's actually a lot of opportunities to stream fish in Arizona. And Fish and Game makes sure that there's fish in those streams for you to catch. The thing I like about stream fishing is you don't wait for the fish to come to you, you go to the fish. Either by walking along the bank of the stream when you're navigating bushes and trees and things like that, or actually wading in the stream, you move up and down the stream trying to find places where you think a fish might be. Pretty much if you can see the fish can see you. And if the fish can see you, they're not likely to bite. So what I do is look ahead of where I'm at, several yards actually, and think, oh, it could be a fish under that branch, could be a fish next to that rock. And then figure out how can I put my bait in the current of the stream so that it'll go by the fish in a natural way. You might do that by casting past where the fish is and letting it float down, or possibly walk around, get upstream of the fish, put your bait into the stream and let it flow. And it's not a sure thing because you have to figure out how the flow of the stream is. Nowadays, much fishing is catch and release, and that means just what it says, that you catch the fish and release them, which is great in terms of maintaining a good supply of fish. Also, if the fish are biting, you don't end up with a whole bunch of fish that you, well, what are you going to do, especially if you might be able to eat one or two. The thing about catch and release, though, which is quite common in stream fishing, is that the fish get smarter. There's actually scientific studies of this, and fish develop in scientific terms what's known as hook avoidance. In other words, they get pretty good at figuring out what's actually their natural food and what's the fisherman trying to catch them after they've been caught and released a few times. So, as I mentioned earlier, it's important to not let the fish see you. And secondly, you can use a very light line so that it's probably not visible to the fish. And try to come up with a bait that is as close as possible to what might be their natural food. Most of the streams in Arizona are not mandatory catch and release, so you're allowed to take the fish that you catch if you want. And most of the fish in streams in Arizona are stocked fish, so don't worry, if you catch all the fish, they're gonna put a whole bunch more in next week. I use sort of a modified catch and release, and by that I mean, if the fish are biting, I'll catch 1 or 2 that I can eat for dinner, and then I'll, if I catch any more, I'll release the fish back into the water. Stream fishing involves hiking, wading, trying to keep your balance if you're wading on slippery rocks in the stream, avoiding trees and branches and brambles if you're walking along the stream, and it's a pretty active form of fishing, and that's why I like it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, John. Please take just a minute, if you would, to write a brief note to John with some constructive comments about his presentation, so that you will have the benefit of those comments for future reference. I must say, when I heard you talking about fishing in Canal Park, I play golf occasionally in Canal Park, and occasionally my ball goes in the water, and even if it's shallow, you can't see the ball. So I hope it's a catch and release situation and for your own good health. Our second speaker this morning is Kate Brophy-McGee. Kate joined Toastmasters in May of 2010 and has been a contributing member since then. She is the epitome of how someone can improve with the experience of Toastmasters. When she first came to Toastmasters, somebody had suggested that she needed a card to tell about herself, and she probably needed some speech training. She's been a contributing member, and she credits Toastmasters with providing the training support she needs to be an effective legislator. Her speech today is titled, "What to Expect When You're Expecting," as she breaks down the upcoming legislative session. Please help me welcome Kate.
Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Fellow Toastmasters, I wanted to talk about 4 expectations for this upcoming legislative session. We are a citizen legislature. That means we meet starting the 3rd Monday in January for 100 days, and when we're done with 100 days of making your lives better, then we go back to doing our regular jobs. That being said, there is a lot that happens during that 100-day period. So the first thing you can expect is that there will be many bills introduced. My first session, I will never forget, there were darn near 1,600 bills that were introduced that we were supposed to think about and do something with over a period of 100 days. At the end of that time, only 250 of them actually became law. This past session, volume was down a little bit. There were only about 1,300 bills, and about 300 of them became law. So your first expectation is there's going to be a lot of volume of bills flowing through the legislature. The way that that works is if a legislature has a really good idea, like everybody needs to wear a flag pin on Thursdays or pay a fine, they can instruct the legislative council to write that bill and they can introduce it. So what I always tell people when they see these crazy bills come rolling down, a bill does not Arizona policy make. Don't panic, wait at least until it gets through a few committee processes before you start to hit the alarm button. The second thing that you can expect that is typical of all legislative sessions is that there will be both anecdotal bills and incremental bills. Talking about anecdotal bills, the one last year that everyone had large chuckles over was the chickens bill, where there was legislation introduced that anyone who wanted to have chickens in their backyard could do so. regardless of what the city and town ordinances, the county ordinances, the HOA ordinance, or CCNRs stated, you got to have chickens in the backyard. It was introduced by an East Mesa legislator whose constituent had lived in this HOA that for 50 years, since its inception, had said no backyard livestock. And he decided he wanted chickens in his backyard. And he went to the HOA, and the HOA said, no, we don't want chickens in our backyards. Go move someplace that does. And he got mad, and he went to his legislator, and he got a bill introduced that made it all the way through the Senate over to the House and died a really messy, feathery death on the floor of the House, near to the last day of session. The other type of expectation would be incremental ideas, incremental creep. I'm a big fan of incremental legislative policy. If you want to move in a certain direction and do some incremental legislation, great. But there's also very bad incremental policy where an original good idea, which gets a lot of publicity that the citizens of Arizona really, really like, then somebody else comes along and tries to do something else to it. So a great example of incremental legislation that is good for Arizona has been our legislative work in water policy. Water policy takes decades to develop. It takes landmark legislation, and it takes a lot of incremental legislation and committee work leading up to good water policy legislation. We have some titans who in Arizona state politics, like Senator John Kyle, who are very involved and invested in water policy, and we have one of the best water policies within the western United States. An example of a bad incremental legislation would be STOs, school tuition organizations, or ESAs. Scholarship accounts for disabled students, foster students, that will allow them to stay in their home schools regardless of whether they are moving from home to home. They can have that education continuity. This past session, they tried to expand it to every student in Arizona, which in essence makes it kind of a backdoor voucher policy. I don't have a problem with vouchers, but let's have the conversation and let's be honest about it. Let's not label it something else. We have a little problem in the Arizona Constitution that says you can't do that. So, two things that you might not expect or get every legislative session is a huge fight over a very problematic budget. And the second thing is leadership at every level has changed. We adopted some very conservative budgets following the cuts of 2009, 10, and 11. We projected out 3 years of revenues, and we spent somewhere under or just under there, with the idea being that we didn't want to spend ourselves into oblivion if the revenues didn't come forth. Well, we now have a problem, because despite those conservative revenue projections, Arizona's economy is faltering, and revenues are not meeting even those conservative projections. Let me give you an overview very quickly of what the budget looks like. $30 billion from all different sources flow into the state of Arizona. $9.5 billion of that is the general fund. That's what our budget looks like. That's what we fight over. Of that $9 billion, about 70% of it is spoken for, either by voter mandate or formula spending. So the rest of it is what we fight over, that 30%. And it can get very heated. In essence, we take that pot of money and we educate, we medicate, and we incarcerate. We fund education, we fund healthcare, and we fund the public safety system. And that's where all the fights occur. One of the things that we're looking at this year, in addition to a budget deficit that may approach $500 million by the end of this next fiscal year, is the fact that the K-12 lobby and education system has won a lawsuit that calls for an immediate payment of $330 million and an additional back payments of $1.3 billion. We've run out of room in the courts. We've kicked the can far enough down the road that it's got more dents in it than a can that Annie Oakley uses for target practice. We need to come up with some immediate, short-term, and longer-term solutions to our education funding. So expect a huge, big fight over the budget. Regarding leadership, we have a new governor. Every statewide office is newly elected. We have a new House leadership team and a lot of new members in the House. The one continuity is the President of the Senate, Andy Biggs, who's very powerful, very knowledgeable about budget and issues, but all the positions, leadership positions below him are new. Expect a lot of twists and turns and a lot of things that could go very, very differently. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
What's that saying from Texas? No man, woman, or child in the state of Texas is safe as long as the legislature is in session. Thank you very much, Kate, and we thank you for your service, because it is a grueling and often thankless job to be out there at the legislature. And Kate was talking about the 100 days. Well, the 100 days are fun-filled for the members of the legislature, and often a lot of evenings, a lot of weekend work. Certainly it's not a 40-hour-a-week job during those 100 days, which often spill over just a little bit, and then there's always the threat of special sessions being called by the governor. With facing a $500 million budget shortfall, it sounds like something that might provoke a special session. Our third speaker this morning is Victor Powell. Victor's been a Toastmaster since April of 2013. He's going to give a speech which is a tantalizing title. It's called Sex Hormone Research plus Toastmasters equals more effective speeches.
I got an email from Alan yesterday asking if I could fill in for him. I wasn't really that prepared, but I found whenever we speak, when I do a sermon or anything else, I'm the one that learns the most. And it was actually fortuitous that he emailed me and asked to help, because I've been mulling over this article that I read. It was in the Harvard Business Journal, doing research on oxytocin. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that. It came into popular vernacular about 15 years ago, is when research first started discovering it. And at that time they called it a sex hormone because they discovered it was abundantly released, should we say tactfully, at the end of the sex act. You have to feel a good hormone. You feel at peace, everything's good, you're in la-la land. And that's why men go to sleep, because we're at peace. Which is opposite of you're talking, but as research has gone on now, they found more and more about oxytocin. That's actually, now they're calling it the safe to approach hormone. That when we have oxytocin in our system, we feel safe and comfortable with someone. How does the oxytocin get in there when you're not having sex with strangers? Well, whenever someone trusts you, their act of trust causes you to release oxytocin. And then you feel, because someone has trusted me, now I feel safe with them and at peace with them. Also, when someone shows you a kindness, any simple kindness, a smile, whatever, the oxytocin levels tend to raise. But now, and I'll leave this to your imagination, why the Department of Defense is spending the money to do this, but the research required they would do a blood draw, you'd view a scenario where someone would do something.
Before and after.
Yeah, and then they would do it before and after blood. Again, I'll leave it to your imagination what the Department of Defense would care about this, but they've developed a way where they can, over 1,000 times a minute, non-invasively without a blood test, read your oxytocin who knows, maybe they're gonna do the old, 60s thing, make love, not war or something, I don't know. We're gonna attack or approach our enemies and figure out how to make their oxytocin levels raise and they'll put down their guns. I don't know, I don't understand. I don't understand a lot of this research, but that's one you might wanna ponder. Character-driven stories, now that they have these other ways to research it, other than blood draws, at Harvard what they're doing is they discovered that character-driven stories increase your oxytocin levels. And the higher the level, the more likely, the more cooperative you're gonna be. And what they're applying these to, and actually this might apply to several people here that are involved in fundraising, unfortunately, some of them aren't here that are involved in, Tom's not here. But the higher the level of oxytocin you can get, the more likely they're gonna open the wallet and be more and more generous. There's a direct correlation between the amount of oxytocin and how generous you're gonna be giving to organizations. So how do you raise those levels? Well, in order to do that, you have to increase that desire to help others comes from empathy. The oxytocin increases our sense of empathy. Empathy, again, is our feeling of as a politician might say, I feel the pain. I feel your pain, brother. But to do that, we first have to get someone's attention. And you started about this, I did this last night, so studying it this morning. So the first thing we have to do is get your attention, though. And the way we do that is by developing attention. When you see a good story, there's always, there's something they have to overcome. And so you become a part of it. Another way to do it is, again, to create the empathy. I'm not a fisherman, but John got up and started with the story of a 7-year-old grandson. I have a 5-year-old grandson that I look forward to seeing, and we do things together. So he caught me emotionally with the story of, oh, okay, this is something you do with your grandson. And so I was listening, oh, okay, I got it. Conroe Creek, I haven't been there in years. That's a good place to take him. So he got me emotionally involved with his story, even though I'm not a fisherman. I don't eat fish. I would definitely be catch and release. And my grandson's at the age where he's funny. Some things a lizard he'll love to touch, something else he'll be like, ew, I don't want to touch that. It's like, but you were holding the lizard. Whatever. So I'm afraid to be that way as a fish. And then I'd be stuck every day all day. But once you get that share of emotion and a character, then people will follow you. This is relevant whether you're raising money or business, if you're selling. If I can tell you a story of someone was in dire straits with their home, it was insurmountable, they had code violations or whatever, and I can show how we build up the tension, they're about to lose their home or whatever, and we come in and we do whatever, or Kitchell comes in and fixes the problem and remodels the building, and now it's a great new school or whatever. So you build that tension, there's an arc there, there's an arc, building the tension, and then it's resolved. Joseph Campbell, I'm sure if you watch PBS at all, you see numerous things that he produces. He's a great storyteller. He builds that arc and resolves it, and people listen and pay attention. It's a triumph over adversity is what we're trying to do. And that creates, again, your oxytocin levels go up because you're involved in the story. Toastmasters is a great place where we get to practice those things. So to conclude, when you want to motivate, persuade, or be remembered, start with the story of human struggle and its eventual triumph. It'll capture people's hearts by first capturing their brains. That's not just a thought, it's scientifically proven now.
Again, please write brief note to Victor. Constructive observations and comments about how he can continue to improve his speaking skills. We've had 3 great speeches this morning. Do we have a timer certificate?
We do. John spoke for 5 minutes, 48 seconds. Kate's speech was 8 minutes 25 seconds, and Victor was at 6 minutes 40 seconds. And Kate was speaking 6 to 8, so she was still qualified.
All speakers are eligible for Best Speaker Award. Thank you very much. So please get your bells around to Dale as to who you think did the best job in terms of the presentation of their topic. At this time, I'd like to invite our Chief Evaluator to the lectern to introduce his 3 evaluators. Please welcome.
And it should still go there, right? Thank you, Raj. Our first speaker was John and Steve Wright was the evaluator. So please, Steve. A couple of insights.
John, very good job this morning. Was this the first time you didn't use notes?
No, I took it on.
First time without the lectern?
I felt most comfortable, let me put it that way.
Well, I noticed you didn't use notes and you didn't use the lectern, and kudos to you for that. I can see you, each speech you give, I can see you getting better and better, more and more relaxed. You have a good voice, you're easy to listen to, pretty relaxed, laid back, and this topic fit your demeanor really well. You had some good fishing advice for people that weren't fishermen. I think they all could understand how you try to get upstream from where you think a fish is and let your bait float down the stream. And you had good word pictures, you had good humor, introducing your grandson into it. A couple things I think you could do to make the speech even better. One would be eye contact. You had good eye contact. You looked at, I felt you looking at me, and I saw you looking at other people in the room. You were pretty much standing facing this side of the room, and I could have swore your notes, if you had notes, were down on the floor over here in the corner. So you spent a lot of time looking down there, and if you could just raise your head up, because your voice will project better, we'll be able to see your face better, and instead of staring at the floor, stare at Greg's tie or something, just below his face instead of the floor.
Yeah.
And that'll come across a lot better. The second thing is, it's a speech that would have been really easy to bring some props. Check out the fishing pole you use. I'm not sure if it's a fly pole or a reel. And then you talked about bait. It'd be interesting to know if it's a lure or live bait or salmon eggs or whatever it is. But a couple little details like that and some visuals would have really enhanced the speech. But all in all, you did a great job, and thanks for presenting that.
Thank you. That was good. I think if there should be one award, best dressed, I think, John. That thing, really is awesome job.
Well, it's because Roger pointed out, the evaluation, he said, give a speech, dress up. So I dressed up just for Toastmasters.
Very well done, and you made a significant improvement, I think. Kate McGee is our second speaker, and Martha is the evaluator. Martha, please. Thank you.
When I volunteered for you, I was like, no!
It's
I
hard.
know every time. But obviously you know the topic, so that obviously it keeps you relaxed. You're relaxed when you come up here. You know what you're saying, you know what you're talking about, and you can tell that when you talk. And you had I love the title of the speech, because we didn't really know exactly, at first I didn't know exactly what we were talking about. And so it was funny, it brought some humor into your speech. And you did have some funny jokes in there about the chicken, and so that made it a little bit humorous. However, when you say one of those jokes, you could maybe talk a little bit louder, or maybe even smile. I didn't really notice that you were smiling, but then you weren't looking at me, and so I know I'm in the corner, so it's kind of hard to kind of get over there. But when you were making eye contact, I didn't see you over there. But you were very organized. It was a great speech. You always have great speeches, but it was very good. And I loved the ending of your speech. Stay tuned, because then it kind of leaves us hooking for wanting more. So great job, Kate.
Thanks a lot. That was very good. Yeah, I thought your eye contact was very good, because I think you looked at me 90% of the time. Thank you. Thank you. That was a great, very informative, I thought. Our third speaker was Victor Powell, and Greg was kind enough to give a couple of topics, choices, and whatever.
Yes. Victor, fellow members, really interesting speech. I thought the title was very captivating. Because all of a sudden we go, whoa, where's he going here? Is this going to be appropriate for this audience? And you pulled it off quite well. And I think that the idea of coming up with what is oxytocin, what is the research telling us about it, you gave us a lot of good factual information. And I thought the exploration of what the Department of Defense would do with it was an interesting inquiry. And so you left us to really think about what all that could entail. I think that in the speech manner and style, your hands never went down and relaxed. So you're always with this little bit of tension where you're a bit nervously wondering what you're going to do next. And then you had your cards in your hand to begin with. The lectern was pushed way back over to the side, and then you put them there. And that then caused you to use the crutch to go back too many times. And my challenge to you is, think of the 3 points that you really want to cover. Jettison the notes, because you've given sermons, you've probably given eulogy, you've probably done a lot of things, and you can speak from that little bit of notes, because remember, 3 points is all you're going to have time for anyhow. And I think further, the conclusion that you almost had to look down and read was less impactful than it would have been if you say what you really thought your conclusion was, because again, you're quite capable of just piecing that together and making it be impactful. So that's my challenge to you.
Thank you. Very good. I almost had the same remarks, and I thought it was a great topic. I think you were very meek, very nice. You could have been a little bit more aggressive, I think. But it doesn't matter. I mean, it's what a great meeting. 3 awesome speakers. The evaluation was very good. Everybody had at least 2 points. Good ones, very good. So no whitewash. Nobody gets it. And I think this concludes my part, unless I'm missing anything, since I did not. Next time I'll be better.
This is the point where you say something about what a wonderful job the Toastmasters.
Yeah.
Roger. Again, I'm going to thank Roger for getting me to this group. New friends, awesome people. Thanks, Roger. Thanks.
Thank you, Tony. Please do make a point to complete your ballots for evaluator, and if you fail to complete your ballots for speaker or table topics, please do so at this point and get them over to Dale so we can count all the ballots, and Martha can announce our winners in a few minutes. Fun meeting. I walked in this morning thinking I was going to be telling a joke, and that was my only thing. All of a sudden, I Toastmaster today, and that, Carney, is why we're all here.
Joke's on you.
Yeah.
It does help people to learn to be spontaneous in terms of getting into speaking situations. Apropos to Greg's word today, and to the way the meeting started out, I'm reminded of the story of the engineer and the doctor and the politician that were having this discussion as to what profession was the oldest. And the doctor said, well, it says in the Bible that God created man and woman. It sounds like a medical procedure of sorts, so I think doctor's the oldest. And the engineer said, well, it also says that before then, it says, out of the chaos, God created heaven and earth. That's an engineering accomplishment. The politician said, who do you think created the chaos? Well, we created some order out of chaos this morning, and I enjoyed all three speeches, really great. And enjoy the tabletop esteem. Steve, thank you for rising to the occasion. And on that note, I'm going to turn the meeting back over to Martha, our president of the day.
Thank you, Roger. Do we have a grammarians report, Greg?
We do. We had not as many ahs or ums as we've had lately, so that's a good sign. Going to have to award the ah bell to Tony. I think he had at least 3 that I detected. Although Martha was in the running,
Yep.
Dale had a couple of them as he was sitting down. If he had just shut up when he sat down, he would have had 0.
So I got 2 in there right as I was
But
sitting
as you were seating yourself, there was 2 ums on the way down. You also said a couple of kindas, so we don't want to do that either. I'm going to point out something of interest, possibly, and that is, Roger said he was anxious to hear from the speakers. Anxious means you're worried. He means eager. And people are constantly misusing the word anxious. And so I would suggest to you that if you ever think to use the word anxious, try and substitute the word eager. You'll probably be more accurate, unless you really are worried.
Thanks, Greg. Do we have any nominations for the Enthusiasm Award today? Greg?
I cast my ballot for Carney. She showed up. She participated in everything that we asked her to do. That's good enthusiasm. And to tell you the truth, 7 o'clock in the morning is not the place most women will want to be. You know, at a meeting all dressed up. So
Big time.
enthusiasm.
Do we have any other nominations?
By acclamation.
Yep. Carney.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Best functionary. Any nominations? Great.
You know, do a co-nomination for Steve and Roger. I think both in terms of running the meeting smoothly, doing the table topics on the fly. I think they did a fine job. Both of them conscripted right at the end.
By acclamation.
Yes. Big
Steve
time.
and Roger, congratulations. Any nominations for the Boner Badge?
Yes.
Yes.
And they nominate Bo. If, I can understand if you're Toastmaster or speaker or any other function that you can't make it, but for the Toastmaster today to not only not make it, but not give somebody a heads up that he couldn't make it, make some effort to find a substitute, is just unthinkable. And so, Bo is my nominee.
By acclamation.
Blauvelt? Any nominations for that? No? Okay, and then Dale, do we have the winners?
We do. Take my leg to knee.
Just whisper harder.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any hot air. Any hot air.
Oh yeah, any hot air?
None today. Everyone was under time. Thank you.
Oh. Any other nominations for hot air? People running, talking? No? No, we're good.
I would suggest, now that she didn't get it, I would suggest that Kate went on for about another 25, 30 seconds after the buzzer rang on table topics. Candidate for hot air, but it was an interesting
But you agreed with my
conclusion.
political.
Well, I did. Well, even if.
But
even
we
if
worry
you
if she doesn't do it.
No,
That's
even
the
if you
occupation.
disagree, you were convincing. The oxytocin was filling.
Are you supposed to?
So best evaluator, we have Greg. Congratulations.
Oh, try the other door.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Can we recount the chads?
And then best, oh, well, I just missed her, but best table topics goes to Carney. So, it's your or no?
No.
Okay, well,
I'll steer. Yeah.
you want?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'll give it to Cardi.
Congrats.
She was gonna win.
I know,
She had it down.
And then best speaker goes to John. Congratulations.
Mr. Fish.
Are there
Well,
any-
you know, it's hard to tell a fish story and not lie. Nobody detected any lies.
That was a great speech.
You seemed relaxed today. It was a good,
Yeah.
it was a good speech.
Really good.
Do we have any other comments of the meeting or?
I have a comment. I'm at that stage, and I think some of the members are too, where I really need to bust through that nervousness. I think the fact that I looked in the corner, there really are no notes there, and that I maybe turn away from one side of the room, is just that last little bit of fear, basically. And I just wondered, how do you get rid of that? You know, I'm just not quite comfortable there. I'm still heart's pounding, you know.
Yeah,
Repetition.
to me, the thought, it's exactly what Steve said. You just keep doing it. As you stand up and you're in front of audiences, it's all of a sudden they're your friends. You feel comfortable in the group, even if it's a large audience, you start to feel more comfortable as you realize that you can explain things, you can finish a sentence, and you can get your point across. And I think that as you show your accomplishment that way, you're gonna get there. We had a fellow in the club here about 3 years ago who had a tendency to just totally freeze up entirely. And he did it a couple of times. And this is a friendly group to help people get there. We're gonna be cheering for you all the way. And he had gotten himself in a position that he just quit. I mean, in this group, no one should ever embarrass themselves to the point they don't feel like coming back. And I think we need to really be supportive increasingly, which, again, for the Kitchell contingency, we're having a hard time getting them there. I don't want to necessarily dump on Bo, who's a young potential future head of the Navajo Nation, to not to feel like we're pounding on him, and frankly, because he may not feel welcome back. And so, you know, he's a young man, and I think he'll learn for those things. So I would be a vote against the idea of giving him the honor badge.
Good one. Good one.
So do we wanna open up, do we not wanna give him the voter badge? Do we
Well,
wanna vote on it?
it's
I
Roger's
propose.
nomination, it's Roger's
Okay.
call.
I think at the same time, you should be, it doesn't take that much of an effort to send out an email, so they say, I can't be Toastmaster or something.
That's a given. I understand. But it's
Perhaps
like,
we broaden it to, because he wasn't the only one that, I didn't see any emails
No.
this
Yeah,
week saying,
it was,
and I see there's a lot of people other roles that we had to sub.
yeah.
So maybe we broaden it
Mike
to the people
Hancock
who.
sent one.
Mike,
I saw.
No shows, that's.
And I think we should tell everybody about the emails. When I joined, I didn't get any, and I said, what? And then I started to get some, then I got more, I got excited. I think emails are good. I think we should just send an email to everybody saying that please email more, you know. And I think he'll get.
Dale's biting his lips over there.
Why?
Schedule.
Yeah. Oh,
Give me the
no.
rent.
Well, we love you.
I don't mind giving Bo the
There you
the
go.
voter award, and
probably should give to him personal.
It's hard to learn to prioritize, and I'm even a victim of that, where I have to prioritize things that you consider important versus Toastmasters, you know, your job versus Toastmasters, and trying to prioritize that. And, you know, it's a challenge for everybody, and most people seem to make it, so.
Yeah, well, that's what Steve roundly criticizes me because I don't ever read the bulletin. And sometimes I have.
It shows up, it says, what am I today? Oh, grammarian.
I mean,
Thus,
yeah.
chaos.
What's been helpful is Alan's been sending those, hey, here's the, even though he's not a Toastmaster, here's who's up, because that's helpful. By the time you remember to go back to last week's bulletin, or you get the one on Monday, you know, things are up in the air, so it's helpful just to have that bulletin saying, here's what's on the plate for the following week, so.
Well, I can always send just the schedule the night before,
Yeah.
if it's beneficial.
I'd say the weekend before because, people cancel at 6 in the morning, it's
Yeah.
just too late,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, so
Or
we
they-
could just.
But at least you get the feedback that they're not coming or something,
Yeah,
so, I don't know. I appreciate that, so that'd be great.
And I think in this case, the reply all is not a bad option, because
we,
everybody should know. Sometimes when you just reply to the person who,
Right.
the whole bunch of people who could help from this information would not get it.
I'm terrified of the reply.
I mean, it is misused, Kay.
Well, our-
reply all.
It is misused.
Well,
In
art
this
hasn't
case,
been
that's why I
replied
said in
to,
this
so-
case. We got-
Okay, so let's
Suicide.
just,
It is, not bad.
let's just reiterate the importance of emailing and organizing,
Right.
and if you guys, if someone isn't supposed to be here, you're not gonna make it, let's find a replacement in, lieu of your duties of that day. So, speaking of you, John, sometimes I listen to music on the way here, especially since it's in the morning, and so I sing and I yell to kind of wake me up and wake my voice up to kind of ease the.
I wonder
The
if that
nervousness.
crazy woman was.
That was me. Well, you never know what you're coming into, but that's sometimes my nervousness. I dance, and who knows what's going on over here. But do we have any outside speaking activities? No.
A lot, yeah, Kate,
Kate.
I'm sure.
Kate needs to bring a list in there.
Oh, and then are there? I think was there any general announcements? I didn't ask that one. I had a question. We're still meeting next week, correct?
Yes.
We are.
We are, okay. I am Toastmaster of the day, so I didn't know if we were still doing that.
I think we are, yeah.
Okay. And then, bulletin writer, do you have a thought of the day?
Oh, not really. Since I'm filling in, I hadn't thought about it.
I think we ought to do something with oxytocin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
club
I'll just
needs
put
more
something.
oxytocin.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Give us a
Chocolate,
thought, Victor.
chocolate is the same thing.
What's the title of your speech again?
More oxytocin makes
That's more of a
reply all
research.
better.
Make oxytocin, not war.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, oxytocin, not war.
Perfect, okay.
Do they sell oxytocin at the marijuana exchanges?
I think that goes the other way.
All right,
Oh,
thank you.
I think it's important for Tony, he videoed the meeting, and we have 3 speakers who may be interested in
Yeah.
seeing the speech.
I'm planning on putting it on YouTube with a password. Only you people know the password.
Okay. And I
Is
have.
that okay? Is that
Yeah.
okay?
Well, it's okay,
Yeah.
and I was gonna say, if we start doing something like that, my first thought was Kate, because this is a place
Who learned?
where people can give speeches about anything, and I've given spoof speeches, and, you know, it's been silly at times. There are times when we may not, as we're banty about, have the whole thing on YouTube.
Well, no,
And
no, I was
particularly if some political opponent of Kate were to say, oh, I'm gonna go explore everything I can, and then she's got the 50 Toastmaster meetings, and we're goofing off and saying silly stuff, and they
Raise
attribute it to you.
everybody's taxes.
Right, yeah. So I think we have, I think we have to be cautious about where that can go.
That's why I think password is good, and then you can always tell me just take it off. Don't, please,
Yeah.
just send me an email and I'll take it off.
Would you do the whole meeting or just the speeches?
No, I was gonna cut them up per person, and
Oh,
I was
great.
going to, but I think the whole speech could get boring, could be too long.
You know, whole
No,
meeting?
some
The
people.
whole
Some
meeting,
people want
the
the
whole
whole
meeting.
I can do that too. It's very simple, very easy.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's gotten easier and easier every month almost. You know.
That's
I'll
amazing.
show you. Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
discuss it next time.
Okay,
Good.
sounds great. All right,
Yeah,
meeting.
and that's probably,
And then my only other question is, did you get your question answered,
Oh, yeah.
John?
Yeah, the answer was just keep doing it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
That seems to be the only.
and like what Larry
Right.
Emmett said, is keep pushing your comfort zone,
Yeah.
and the more you push it, like moving the lectern and notes, the more you push it, then when you go back to, then you realize how much progress you made.
And one way to get rid of Oz is to be more prepared, right?
Well,
More
it's
conscious.
it's a matter of being conscious of
Get
it.
conscious of it, yeah.
If you're not already there, you will very quickly be at the point where you're watching a talk show, David Letterman, whatever,
Indeed.
and you'll realize that this actor that you have such a high regard for can't say 3 words without you know,
Kinda.
or kinda, or like, and just
Yeah.
the atrocious as a
Amazing, yeah.
extemporaneous public speaker.
So just become aware of it in
Right.
your own speech, that's the first step. And
Yeah.
you are,
I'm getting better.
yes, you are, you're doing this much better.
But, suggestion for John, the topics you speak on, make them really simple that you know, personal. Then it's easier, then you can just concentrate on gesture, voice, and eye contact. And you don't have to think about statistics, some in-depth topic. Just be superficial with the topic and work on those other things to where you don't really have to think. You get your 3 points like Greg was suggesting to Victor, and just let it happen. It should be a natural if it's something you know something
Well, it
about.
doesn't have to be simple, it could be something that he's impassioned
Well,
about, you know, that's.
Something that's
passionate.
real familiar. I mean, it'll be simple to him because he doesn't even know what to do.
Yeah, I can bore you guys to death with that.
Yeah.
Week after week. That's true, I need to learn how to force myself to look at
Class
people.
Class is
Not look
dismissed.
down.
We've got a whole bunch of engineers in here, there's no way you can ignore us. So,
I need signatures in for
And my goal
time was so long, I didn't even.
Yeah.
I got the other ones written down.
I keep my old one, I use it for my music player.
Tony, I met you yet.
Yeah, me.
Bill Jensen.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I'm with my